Hey, thanks for watching another video from weldingtipsandtricks.com. I'm Jody Collier and I'm here with my friend Andrew Carden. Tell us what we're going to do today, Andrew.
So today we're going to re-examine the 60-10, 70-10 on plate in progression to doing welds, the same welds on pipe.
Okay, so we're doing an overhead plate that's going to mock up the bottom area, the overhead portion of pipe.
Exactly. We're going to do a direct overhead with 1/8 for our 60-10 root, 532 hot filling cap.
Let's do it. All right, so this procedure calls for 30-degree beveled plates, 1/16 land with a 1/16 gap. All right, even though this is stick welding, and yes, stick welding will burn through hot rolled mill scale, no problem. It's going to weld better if we knock a little bit of that mill scale off. We're using a Walter flap disc here to put a 1/16 land on there and tacking it up with a 1/16 gap. Then we're going to place it in the overhead position using this tree, this fixture provided by Triangle Engineering. They provided the test plates also. If you want to learn more about the products that you can get, like a test stand, test plates, practice pipe, any of that stuff, tryeng.com. Here we go with the root pass. I'm going to let Andrew explain to you what's going on here, what he's feeling, what he's seeing, all that stuff.
So when we skip over this arc shot right here, I'm still dragging the root in at that 90 amps, but you see the puddle's not really following me like it would on a downhill. That's because the gravity's no longer helping me as much, so sometimes I have to whip back into the puddle just so there's no low spots, and it comes out nice and consistent.
What about rod angle, Andrew?
Rod angle is going to be close to about 90 degrees to the pipe. Sometimes I like to actually go into more of a little push angle. Depends on the gap. By the time I get to the bottom, it might squeeze up, it might open up, depending on the fit up.
All right, well that's the root. Up next is the hot pass, and now is where we go to 532. This is a 70-10 532, 135 to 145 amps. Now remember, this is a series of plate test videos that are geared toward practice toward pipe. So this is the overhead portion of pipe. I'm going to get Andrew to explain to you what's going on right here. Think of pipe as you're watching this.
Running the same amperage I would be running on a pipe. You want it to be nice and hot, and a nice tight arc so that you can move in and out very quickly, letting that puddle wash out quickly on the sidewalls, not trapping any slag on the root, and also not really putting a lot of pressure on the rod to punch through the root that's already there.
Now the procedure where Andrew works calls for grinding the root, but you got to be careful how much you grind, because when you come back over a 1/8 root with a 532 hot pass, you could blow through. So be careful on that. Now this is the first fill pass after the hot pass. Roughly the same amperage, roughly the same technique. Again, I'm going to let Andrew kind of walk you through this as we watch this arc shot.
The hot pass, you'll notice, was hot and it was really quick how I was moving. Again, keeping my rod real tight to the plate, I'm going to be moving fairly quickly in my ripples, but you'll see I pause maybe a millisecond longer to allow that puddle to fill the joint out just a little bit more in preparation to the cap.
You got to be thinking ahead, because you want that cap, you want that your last pass before the cap to be pretty much flush, because you got very stringent cap requirements. Isn't that right?
That is correct. They want a 16th cap reinforcement underneath the pipe. Of course, gravity is going to be pulling down on you, so you want to get that. I personally like to have it flush so that I can move in and out a lot quicker and keep that cap nice and flat.
All right, so now we're a little bit below flush. It's going to take one more fill pass before we're ready for the cap. And now we got to really watch this thing on how much it fills up so that we're in good shape for the cover pass, for the cap pass. All right, walk us through this one, Andrew.
Again, I'm just going to keep that. My times are going to get longer and longer how much I hold. And if you just notice a little bit of a wiggle in my rod when I come back to pause, I'm really watching where that last crater left off. And when I come back into it, the little bit of a wiggle is going to really widen out and almost take that bevel edge. I say almost take that beveled edge, because you really want to leave that beveled edge, especially walking away from yourself as you would be in the trench. You want to leave yourself a little bit of a guideline of where you're going.
Perfect. Yeah, I can relate. I always like to not chew the beveled edge off so I have a nice straight line to make a prettier cap. Speaking of the cap, we're just about dead nuts flush. So it's time to put the cover pass on here. So let's talk about rod angle, arc length, and all that stuff on here, Andrew.
So it's going to be, everything's going to have stayed the same since the root pass, but what you're going to see now is that puddle's it acts a lot more intense just because there's real nowhere for it to go. It's just building, it's almost like bead on plate, which is also a good practice for doing a cap pass, but I'm coming back, my arc is hot enough where it's wetting out just over the edges of the bevel, and I'm just moving in and out as quick as I can.
All right, what we're watching here is real time. In just a few seconds, I'm going to slow it down to only 25% of the speed so we can really talk about what's going on here. This should be good. Go, Andrew.
So when you watch me come back into that puddle, a pro tip would be to really make sure you're filling up that crater as you go back. You're going to see that puddle almost solidify. And then when you whip out, it's just about solidified. When you come back, see how I didn't fill it? And then boom, I give it a little bit more push back just to make sure that those two ripples meet up.
Now remember, this is slowed down to 1/4 of real-time speed, but I think it's very educational to watch this. It kind of happens all so quickly in real time. So slowing it down here, you can see that puddle just begin to solidify. You can see that you come back not quite into the exact same area of the puddle, but just a little bit ahead of that, and that's what makes your ripple spacing. That's what makes the bead even. That's what makes your stack. All right, Andrew, how strict are your inspectors over the 1/16 max height cover pass requirement?
They're about as strict as they come, depending on what customer you're servicing and what the agency in your state is requiring. Yours is interpreting their code. So that 1/16, you want to try to hold to it or hold under it if at all possible.